Okay, now we've got the axle. It's just sitting on here. This stuff is sort of tight. It's not really tight. I can still knock it around, but it's basically together. So our next step, okay, I have my 58-inch that I wanted to hold for dead center of the axle. Now I've gone ahead and I've double checked that. I mean, it's close enough. Again, none of this stuff is that critical. I like to get everything square. Now this is another thing I like to do. Measure from my front, and I'll measure dead center to my bolt hole, and do the same thing on the other side and make sure they're right on. Put some marks down. My next step, now that I put these on, these are just regular, they came with the trailer kit. They're 9/16 bolts that go through these shackles. This is the front of the hanger bracket. This is the one that's going to be solid in place and does not move. The back one we'll show you in a bit. That's going to, you know, this is going to be up a little bit and it's got shackles, so when you hit a bump and the spring collapses, that, you know, you got your travel. But the front one stays put. So this is the one you measure off. So as long as you have this the same, that the same, and I have everything centered up on this on the side rail, you should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and tack these down now. Okay, I've tacked this, the front ones, they're in place. I've tacked them in 4 corners, so and I've triple checked all the measurements. It's perfect, it's good. So that's not going anywhere. Now what I've done is I've put my shackle brackets on. Everything's just loose. Just slid the bolt through, put the nut on. Now the key to these, now this trailer manufacturer recommends, I'll show a close-up in a little bit, but they recommend putting this down the horseshoe shape like this. And I can see why. You get a lot more welding surface and so forth. So what you want to do is center that up. Now you want the spring bolt to be just a hair back from the mount bolt. So what that's going to do, now this is upside down, but when you get weight on there, when you hit bumps, it's going to allow this to go down, and then that's going to move backward. So that's where you get your travel. That's how come you're not breaking springs every time. So what I'm going to do is, generally, I don't know exactly what the rule of thumb. I've read anything from 10 degrees, but I don't know if that's with sitting upright with weight on it or not. What I've always done is just, since there's no weight on here right now except for axle weight, I just go just slightly past center. And that way when I flip it over and we start putting everything else on, you know, this will gradually work its way more. Just so it's not centered or in front of center. If it was too far this way, your spring wouldn't travel and you'd have a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and tack these down, and then I'll take some close-up shots. Again, guys, this is just for reference. There's the front bracket. There's our mechanism, or our U-bolts. And then here's the shackle brackets. Now you can see how they're just past center toward the rear of the trailer. Well, that'll change quite a bit when we put weight on it. And from here, I'll be able to get some good welds inside and around. And the same with this. These are important welds, guys. If you're not up to the task, find someone that is. This holds the wheels underneath your trailer. Okay, now we're at the point where we're going to add the rest of the cross members. Now, what I do, this is the difference between buying those cheap ones at Menards or Lowe's, is I like to go 16-inch on center wherever possible. The cheap ones, not only are you getting thinner material, you're lucky that well, I shouldn't say lucky, but I think they go 24-inch centers. So basically you got 2 less cross members in the trailer. Well, I know that I have the potential to really, abuse this, so I like to beef it up whenever possible. Now this one is going to be critical because this is going to be part of your hitch. So you definitely want to make sure you have the same measurement, you know, so everything in this section is square. The rest of these aren't a real big deal, so I got 16-inch center, 16-inch center. Now the axle screws me up, so I can't do 16-inch center necessarily, you know, that would land about here. So what I did was I just stayed a couple inches away from the axle itself, and I put these in. Now I orientated them this way so that, you know, if I had this over here, this could potentially hit before the axle would hit. But right now the axle is going to hit the bottom of the frame before anything's going to touch either one of these two cross members. So there's no science to it. I just made sure that I wanted more than just one, because I'm going to be putting a really heavy welder across the axle, so I beefed it up. You could get away with just putting one if you're just going to be hauling yard waste or, you know, whatever, if it's not that heavy duty. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. So anyhow, we have no trouble there with the clearance, and then I went 16 inches from the back. That's what it ends up being. So you've got 7 cross members total, counting the front and the back. So next step, I'm just going to tack this all in. Everything should already be square. Nothing's going to change now unless we start cutting things apart. So I'm going to tack these up, and our next step is going to be we're going to work on the hitch and get that going.